The airport buzzed with the usual mix of rolling luggage, overhead announcements, and tired travelers hoping for coffee strong enough to keep them upright. The security line stretched long but moved steadily. People shuffled forward, shoes half-tied, laptops already in hand. Marcus Reed waited calmly near the metal detector. He was in his late 30s, dressed in a simple navy hoodie and dark jeans. Nothing flashy. Just a man traveling like everyone else. A small duffel bag hung over his shoulder, well worn from years on the road. But when he stepped forward, the TSA agent's eyes narrowed. Officer Blake, white, mid-40s, buzz cut, jaw set like he was always angry, extended an arm across the lane. "Sir, step aside." Marcus paused, not startled, just patient. "Is there a problem?" Blake didn't answer the question. Instead, he spoke louder, making sure nearby passengers could hear. "We're doing random checks. Bag on the table. Arms out. Now." Marcus set his bag down and raised his arms. Calm. Composed. He had been through airports more times than he could count, and he'd heard the word random used like this before. Blake patted his pockets, his sleeves, his legs. Slow. Deliberate. Dragging out the moment. Passengers watched, some with awkward sympathy, others with that quiet look that meant they'd seen this before too. Blake finished the pat-down and didn't find anything. So he moved on to the bag. He unzipped it and began pulling things out one by one. Clothes, laptop, a book, a travel toiletries kit. He searched each item longer than necessary. Nothing. But the agent didn't stop. "Where are you traveling today?" Blake asked, arms crossed now. "Chicago," Marcus said. "For what?" Marcus held his gaze. Marcus. "Business." "What kind of business?" The tone made the question clear. "Convince me you belong here." Before Marcus could answer, another TSA agent, Officer Ramirez, younger, observant, approached quietly. "Everything all right here?" Blake scoffed. "Just doing my job. Making sure certain people don't slip past without a proper check." The phrasing hung in the air, sour and unmistakable. Marcus didn't raise his voice, didn't match hostility with hostility. He simply said, "Are you finished searching my belongings?" Blake smirked. "Not quite. I'll need to run additional tests. Could take a while. If you're in a hurry, should have planned better." Passengers shifted uncomfortably. Marcus nodded once, slow, deliberate. Then, he reached into his wallet and pulled out a card. Not flashy, not dramatic. A standard federal identification badge. He held it up where both officers could see. Federal Aviation Safety Oversight and Compliance Division. Senior Inspector Marcus Reed Ramirez blinked. Blake's smirk broke. Marcus spoke evenly, not loud, not forceful, just precise. "I'm here for a surprise inspection of this airport's security procedures. I was scheduled to observe anonymously." He lowered the badge. "But I believe I've seen enough." The air changed. Passengers stopped pretending not to listen. Blake's face drained of color. Ramirez straightened instantly. "Sir, Mr. Reed, my apologies. We weren't informed." "You weren't supposed to be," Marcus said. "The purpose is to see how travelers are treated when you think no one is watching." Blake swallowed hard. Marcus continued, his tone still calm. "And I will be documenting exactly how this screening was conducted. Not shouted, not vengeful. Simply true." The security line was silent now, every witness remembering the moment. Marcus zipped his own bag smoothly, slung it over his shoulder, and stepped forward toward the gate. He didn't look back. He didn't need to, because the report would speak louder than anything he could say. And Blake, who had assumed power based on prejudice, had just learned exactly who he had been talking down to. The man who evaluates him. Marcus didn't head straight to his gate. Instead, he walked calmly toward the Airport Security Administration office, located above the checkpoint. His steps were steady, not rushed, not triumphant, just purposeful. He'd done this before. The door slid open with an electronic buzz, revealing a small administrative wing. Posters about safety compliance lined the walls. A receptionist looked up from her desk. "Good afternoon," Marcus said. "I need to speak with the shift supervisor." The receptionist stood so quickly her chair nearly rolled back. "Of course, sir, right away." Within minutes, Supervisor Jensen, a tall white woman in her early 50s with sharp glasses and a sharper mind, stepped out of her office. She recognized Marcus instantly. His name had crossed her email weeks ago. "Mr. Reed," she said, extending her hand with genuine respect, "I didn't expect your evaluation visit until next month." Marcus shook her hand. It was intended to be unannounced, so the observations would reflect everyday behavior. Jensen's expression shifted. She understood exactly what that meant. They walked into her office together. Marcus took a seat. He placed his bag down, not in frustration, but with clean, deliberate composure. Jensen sat across from him, pen already poised. "Tell me what you saw," she said. Marcus described the interaction downstairs with precise clarity. Not embellished, not dramatized, not softened. The profiling. The prolonged search with no cause. The public humiliation disguised as procedure. The phrase "certain people." Jensen exhaled slow and heavy. "That is not uncommon," she admitted quietly. "We receive complaints, but without direct evidence, internal reviews can only go so far." "You have it now," Marcus said, not angry, not cold, just unshakably sure. Jensen nodded. "Officer Blake has had warnings before. This may be the final incident needed for removal." Marcus paused, thoughtful. "Discipline is necessary," he agreed. "But performance correction isn't enough. This is cultural. Training must address implicit bias, not just procedures." Jensen wrote his exact words down. "And Ramirez?" she asked. "He attempted to de-escalate," Marcus said. "He should be acknowledged for that." A quiet recognition lifted in the room. Justice not just in punishment, but also in fairness. Jensen closed her notebook with a soft snap. "I appreciate your professionalism, Mr. Reed. Many people in your position would have raised their voice." Marcus gave a small smile, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I've spent a lifetime learning which tone gets heard." The room fell still. Not out of discomfort, but out of truth. Then Jensen stood. "Would you allow me to walk you back to your gate?" Marcus nodded. They exited the office. The receptionist watched them pass with wide eyes. Down the stairs, through the hallway, toward the checkpoint again. And there Blake stood, stiff, pale, aware something had shifted in the air. Jensen addressed him directly. "Officer Blake, report to my office. Now." No raised voice, no spectacle. Just authority where it belonged. Blake swallowed, nodded, and walked off wordlessly. Passengers in line noticed. They understood. Ramirez caught Marcus's eye from across the lane. Marcus gave him a respectful nod. Ramirez nodded back, grateful. As Marcus walked toward his gate, the airport no longer felt heavy. It felt corrected, not perfect, but moving toward better. And for Marcus, that was enough for today. By the time Marcus reached his gate, boarding had just begun. People lined up in orderly rows, scanning passes, pushing carry-ons along with tired patience. No one there knew what had happened downstairs. No one knew that the calm man moving toward the counter had just reshaped an entire piece of airport policy. And Marcus preferred it that way. He approached the gate agent, a young woman with warm eyes and braids pulled back into a neat bun. She smiled, professional but kind. "Good afternoon. Boarding pass, please?" Marcus handed it over. Her scanner beeped, screen lighting up with a notification. Her eyes widened, not out of alarm, but recognition. "Oh, Mr. Reed, you've been upgraded?" She lowered her voice. "The captain requested it personally." Marcus blinked. That hadn't happened before, but he nodded with the same steady composure. "Thank you," he said, and stepped down the jet bridge. Inside the plane, the crew greeted him with the easy politeness of well-trained hospitality. No stiffness, no hesitation. Just welcome. He took his seat near the window, roomier, quieter. He set his bag down and leaned back, letting himself breathe out a long, full exhale, the kind that releases weight rather than carrying it. The cabin filled slowly. Passengers shuffled in, adjusting seatbelts, tucking jackets away. A young boy across the aisle stared at Marcus, wide-eyed and curious. "Hi," the boy said. "Are you a pilot?" Marcus smiled. "Not today." The boy nodded like that answer made perfect sense, then turned back to the coloring book in his lap. Moments later, someone else boarded, the young TSA agent from earlier, Officer Ramirez. He hadn't seen Marcus yet. He looked tired, but lighter somehow, like something heavy had shifted. He walked down the aisle, searching for his seat. When he reached Marcus's row, his gaze lifted and their eyes met. Recognition flickered, then respect. Ramirez paused. "Sir, I wanted to say thank you for how you handled things," he said quietly, voice low so it stayed between them. "You could have yelled, or embarrassed him, or me, but you didn't. You just showed him who you were." Marcus shook his head. "I didn't need to show him. I only needed to show the truth." Ramirez nodded slowly, absorbing that. He cleared his throat. "I'm going to do better," he said. "I mean that." Marcus believed him. Not because of tone, not because of apology, but because of sincerity. "Good," Marcus replied. "Change happens one person at a time. Start with yourself." Ramirez took his seat a few rows back, quiet, thoughtful. The plane doors closed, engines hummed. The runway stretched ahead like an open promise. As the plane lifted into the sky, clouds glowing gold in the late afternoon light, Marcus looked out the window. He wasn't thinking about the incident, or the report, or the disciplinary review that would unfold. He thought about the world he lived in, complicated, imperfect, still learning. But today, in one small corner of it, someone had been reminded, power doesn't come from a badge, or a uniform, or a checkpoint. It comes from knowing who you are, even when someone else refuses to see it. The plane climbed higher, and Marcus sat back, steady as the sky. Chicago greeted Marcus with crisp autumn air and the low rumble of traffic rolling beneath the airport overpass. He stepped into a quiet hotel room, not far from the terminal, and placed his bag neatly beside the desk. No celebration, no dramatic sigh, just quiet routine. He opened his laptop. The Federal Incident Reporting System blinked to life. This was not just paperwork, it was accountability. Marcus began typing with the steady precision of someone who had learned to measure every word, because the truth, when recorded cleanly, did not need to shout. He documented the unjustified secondary search, the targeted tone used in front of passengers, the patterned phrasing suggesting bias, the professionalism of Officer Ramirez, the lack of procedural justification at every step, no exaggeration, no emotional charge, simply what happened. He attached timestamps from video logs he'd quietly noted during the screening. He referenced the policy handbook by chapter. He cited procedural violations line by line. The difference between perception and proof was in the detail. When he finished, he didn't hit submit right away. He sat back. He let the room breathe. He had done this kind of report before, but something about this one sat differently. Not heavier, just clearer. He knew Officer Blake would likely lose his position. Not because Marcus wanted him punished, but because Blake had chosen behavior that endangered dignity, trust, and the very meaning of security. Security was not metal detectors and latex gloves. Security was how people are treated. Marcus hit submit. A confirmation message appeared. Report received. Internal review initiated. He closed the laptop. He let the quiet settle. A soft knock sounded at the door. Room service, nothing fancy. Just warm soup and bread. The evening light spilled across the table, city lights flickering in the window like distant stars trying to land. Marcus ate slowly. Not rushed, not tense, just present. Tomorrow he would meet with the airport's leadership team. They would ask him what needed to change, and he would tell them, training must teach sight, not just procedure, not just protocol. Sight, the ability to see a person's humanity before their skin, their clothes, their assumptions. When he finally lay down, his mind didn't replay the confrontation. It didn't rerun old hurts. He slept knowing something subtle but important had shifted. Not in the airport, not in TSA policy, but in one man. Himself? Maybe. But more importantly, in the young officer who had watched, listened, learned, and would now carry that forward. Sometimes change doesn't roar. Sometimes it begins with a quiet correction in the heart of the person who sees the wrong done and chooses differently next time. 2 weeks later, Marcus returned to the same airport. Same terminals, same security lanes, same echo of rolling suitcases across polished floors. But the atmosphere was not the same. The checkpoint looked more organized. Agents stood straighter, not tense, but deliberate. The tone was professional, not performative. The loud sighs and eye-rolling Marcus once overheard were gone. In their place, measured patience. Small changes. Real ones. He walked towards security, ready for another unannounced audit. He carried a simple messenger bag. No badge visible. No announcement of who he was. He wanted to see the truth, not the performance. Officer Ramirez was on duty. He noticed Marcus before Marcus spoke, eyes widening in recognition that wasn't fear, but respect. "Good morning, sir," Ramirez said, voice steady. "Place belongings on the belt whenever you're ready. No extra questions, no assumptions, no raised eyebrows, just procedure." Marcus complied, set his bag down, stepped through the scanner. Efficient, professional, equal. Ramirez waited for the scan to finish, handed back the bag with a small, almost quiet smile. "Safe travels, Mr. Reed." Marcus didn't smile wide, not his style, but something warm flickered behind his eyes. "You're doing well," he said. Ramirez nodded. "I'm trying," he answered. "And I've been talking to some of the others about how we talk to people, how we look at them." Marcus didn't respond immediately. He let the weight of that statement settle in the air, where it could be appreciated for what it was. Growth without an audience. "That's how culture changes," Marcus said at last. Ramirez straightened, proud, not of impressing him, but of becoming better. As Marcus walked toward his gate, he passed a group of travelers watching the exchange. One older black man placed a hand briefly over his heart. A small gesture of recognition, shared experience without needing words. Marcus nodded back. Not as a hero, not as a symbol. Simply as a man who had stood his ground with dignity. At the boarding area, the sun poured through the tall glass windows, flooding the terminal with gold. Announcements echoed softly overhead. Marcus looked out at the runway. Airplanes rose and descended, carrying thousands of lives, each moving through the world with their own stories, battles, hopes, misunderstandings, victories. And in one corner of that world, something had shifted. Not loudly, not for show, but truly. Because one man refused to let someone else decide his worth. Because one moment can ripple. Because change, real change, often begins quietly, in the space where someone decides to see instead of assume. Marcus adjusted the strap on his bag, stepped forward when his group was called, and boarded calmly, like a man who understood exactly who he was, where he belonged, and why that would never again be in question.